think I am live, and this thing just popped off the tripod, so I'm going to put this back on there one more time. Okay, there we go, hopefully. So I'm going to just let people start coming in. Hello, Kayla. I had this thing all propped up and ready to go, and it decided, I'm going to fall over. So don't mind me trying to get this straight, even though. Thanks, Maddie. Hello, Alicia. Hi, Kat. Wow, everybody just decides to pop in all at once. And I'm, okay. No, this way. Well, that looks kind of a little bit dim-witted, but oh, okay. Right, a little bit to the. I'm hanging in there. I'm just playing um camera setup right quick to get this. Okay, that'll probably do. Don't move. Okay. Oh. So as you can kind of tell, just turn that off so I don't have an awkward echo effect. Bloody thing, come on. I'm going to be talking about the Ouija board or the spirit board and actually be going about it in a way that is not only simple, practical, but also safe and other precautions you can do and you probably should consider doing if you're going to use one of these little things. And I'm also going to dispel a lot of kind of, best said, BS about them because some things are like, okay, yeah, that is true. That does hold some truth in it compared to like how some people are like, well, yeah. So I'm just going to get that over there, get that out of my life, tell that to piss it. So that way I have the all chat right there. That way I can see what people are saying. So, as we all know what the board looks like. Okay, whoopie whoop. Some people like to design them all fancy smanchy. Some people like to make them all pretty and cutesy. But there's some people that just simply just draw the letters like that. Have a no and a yes there, and then numbers there, goodbye. And there are some that start with hello, and then there's the goodbye on the other side. But nonetheless, generally, there has to be some form of alphabet. Like there can be even Ouija boards in different languages, like Cyrillic, which is Russian. There's really no limitation you can actually make a board with. You can even make a board with rooms, or even your own rooms. You can even make up your own alphabet to communicate with. It doesn't matter. As long as there's some form of communication with this, and there's some form of having words or sounds being spelt out, or even also numerically, as long as that's on the board, it's fair game. So, and as you can see, size does not matter. That sounds so nasty, but let's try and keep this, on point here. There is the idea that people tend to do these as pranks. That's not the good way to go about it because, believe it or not, even though it was made by Hasbro many moons ago, this is actually a divination tool. What do you mean by divination? You're divinating with an astral being. An astral being can be anything from a passed on, a divine, an angelic, a left hand path divine, a fae, a spirit, elemental, don't matter. This is a means of communication. This is somewhat identical to that of a pendulum, except this one is more elaborate. Same thing if you're like doing tarot reading, except this is more like if you're actually communicating one-on-one. Or if you happen to have more than one come through, you can actually have two, or even a mosh pit. But that's why, again, this is not something to be used as like, oh, I'm gonna prank. No, 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 no. No, that's a big whoopsie. So, thanks for Rick Mara. I think that's it. Yep, my birthday was the 5th. but nonetheless. And using these, the location to be kind of um, realistic, you can really use a Ouija board, spirit board. You can take it out at any time you want to use it and use it wherever you please. I'm saying that because it's what you can do. Literally, you can use the board anywhere you want to go. Of course, there are places a lot more optimal than others. Like, for example, thanks. I'll just have to wait till it pops up on the live chat over here. Misora? Yeah, I'll go with that. Is that how you say your name? Misora? That's a pretty name. I like how that sounds so pretty. I'm jealous. I wish my name was more pretty. Mine's just Brendan. Bleh. But nonetheless, some places that it probably could use a better place instead of these would be number one, a church. Number one. Number two, a cemetery. The well, for the reason why for a church is because, well, since that is a place where there's a lot of strict guidelines and a lot of strict ways of handling these kind of practices, it's just opening the door and just pretty much asking for something to kind of come at you in a very painful way. Cemetery. Well, the cemetery is a place where there are passed on residing in. This is also a way that they can come through and communicate and speak to you, any of them. And when you open this thing and you use this thing, it's like if you're opening like a floodgate. Anything and anyone on that side can come through. So what you're doing. Another place that's probably not suggested to do it is most likely is not best to do this, like say I would have to say like if there's a place where there's a traumatic event. Just for an example, if you decide to go to your friend's house and there's domestic violence going on in the house, not the best place to use the board because it can pick up on those energies and it can pretty much manifest itself into a poltergeist and it can come right through the board and latch onto you. Mm, and that's just how it is. But nonetheless, and usually you would I can't really pronounce the word. You would use it's shaped like it's kind of shaped like a heart kind of a thing and it has a thing like that. You don't really technically need to have something exactly like that. You can use an alternative like simply like this little clear quartz and you just simply just allow it just to move over each letter. Of course, you might have to use a smaller piece, but as long as you have something to actually like point to each letter and go over the top of it, that'll do just as fine. So now, probably the most important thing, keeping yourself safe when you're using this thing. First and foremost, again, literally anything, anyone, doesn't matter if it's hanky, panky, spanky, wanky, danky, hanky, don't matter. Anything can just go right through and start interacting with you. Don't matter what it is. Good, bad, supportive, baneful, neutral, aggressive, peaceful. Everything is fair game with this. That's just how it is. So, precautions you can take before you even start. Obviously, the best thing to do is to figure out why the heck are you going to use the board? What's your intent? What are you trying to accomplish with this? Are you trying to have an event that gives you a heart attack and scare the living heck out of you? If that's the case, well, okay, because you're going to be having that thought going through your head. Are you trying to communicate or interact with something that's on the other side, such as an ancestor, spirit, divine, fae, what have you? If that's the case, make it known, say it aloud, and keep focus on that. And when you have contact with any entity, doesn't matter who or what it's claiming to be, you have the right and you should demand it identify itself and prove that it's them. If they can't do it, completely dismiss them. Dismiss them. And another key thing you have to understand is you and whatever is coming through this board, don't matter who it is again, you and whoever it is, you're an equal to it. Meaning, you have the right to tell it, hey, you're not going to do that. Don't talk to me like that. Don't hissy fit. Don't act out of line. Why acting like a child? Stop it. I'm trying to have a experience and learn something here, and you're throwing a hissy fit. Quit it. And then the same thing, vice versa. And that has to be part of the foundation of yours. Take no BS. Doesn't matter who it is. Make it known. No BS. If it comes out of line and starts getting pushy and aggressive, give it a warning like, hey, stop acting like that. If you're gonna keep acting like this, then we're done. Goodbye. Nope. And then right there. And if it improves and starts behaving, okay. But if it keeps acting out of line, simply close by putting the marker on goodbye, toodaloo. That's it. Done. Because both of you, including the entity, have the right to be spoken to as another being with respect, dignity, and mature. If it hissy fits, give it a warning shot. Say, nope, not in my space. And I don't care who it is, regardless of title or how long it's been known as a spirit. I don't care. If it's going to hissy fit, I'm not going to put up with it. I'm not going to deal with it. Because if it's supposed to be so many thousands of years old or however old, don't you think by now it would learn to kind of be a little bit more self-controlled and respectful? I mean, that's just my opinion, but I mean, I don't know. I just work here, okay? But still, that's none of my business. The whole idea, though, is that regardless, even if like there's a fiend that's known as Zozo, and I've had a lovely experience with that, and he actually got a piece of Selenite stabbed through him. Well, Ragnar, it's simple. You just simply just go towards whichever poetic divine that you feel called to. Just approach him. Call out to him. Same thing if you're interacting with any other spirit. But make sure you know your foundation and what you'll put up with, and you will not put up with it. You have the right to say so. If you're not comfortable, you have the right to express it. And if they're not going to respect that, nope, doesn't matter. Because in your world, you come first. Everything else outside of you doesn't matter. No ifs, ands, buts, or twisties. Point blank. So, mhm. Now, usually when doing board work as such, unless if you have experience with it and you have done it numerous times that you're familiar with it, I would highly suggest you would have at least minimum, at least 4 to 5 people with you. Why that many? Simple. One, you have one person with the marker going over each letter. You have another person with the person across the way asking the questions within the area interacting with the board. Then the other people are on the sidelines, preferably somebody who has a lot of strength, a lot of muscle, and is able to jump on someone and restrict them. Why is that? Because again, somebody who's inexperienced with this has the risk of having something take a hold of them. And the reason why you have another person across the way with the person using this, as soon as this person is starting to show signs of something not being right, they can take the finical, put it right on goodbye, end it right there. Then the people that are on the outside can come in and hold down and restrict the other person who might be having signs of possible spiritual possession. Not saying it's going to happen every time, but when it comes to things like this, you have to make sure every little possible thing that can happen is covered. And I'm not saying to scare her, I'm just saying for safety first. Because the amount of YouTube videos that have been put up and the amount of incidents that have actually had somebody have it happen to them, people need to understand that as soon as someone is like that, you have to move them off the board, get get the indicator, put it right on goodbye, ends it right there, then attend to the person. Does not matter. You have to make sure the indicator, lands right on goodbye. Because once it hits goodbye, this thing is done. And the connection is severed. And then you have to attend to the person. And if they get violent, again, you have to have somebody strong enough to restrict them. Because they're potential risks. They can hurt themselves, somebody else, cause damage to the area around them. And it's not a pretty sight, but it is what it is. So, other precautions you can take, you can use, this is actually from my friend Arena from her Etsy store. You can actually surround the board with, don't know if you can see that, black salt. Black salt is a really, excuse me, black salt is a really potent anti-negative type of salt. You could use regular table salt, you can use sea salt, and what you would do is you would make it just go around the board. That way, anything that is baneful that tries to come out of the board is going to get sucked into the black salt and neutralized. Another thing that you can do, and this is what I like to do, you can either surround it with selenite, and you have to make sure, and you put it on top of the board, and you just simply do it as such. One more. Hmm. Okay, oh, there we go. Hmm. As long as the board at least has it covered, such as that, as long as there's um down below in the description, Ragnar, there should be an like a site that's just ask me that you can actually use that to actually ask me a question, and actually I can go over whatever you're potentially asking for. So if you follow that below, you should be able to see the link and what needs to be done for that. So yes. So now that the board is literally having selenite on it, selenite as a stone is essentially a high vibration and it's a BS repeller or a negativity repeller. So pretty much this selenite on the board is like a glass ceiling. Anything negative is essentially going to do this when it tries to come out of the board, and if you're using the pinnacle, as you're using it, if something tries to come through and get a hold of you, it's going to go hit its head, like keep hitting its head on an invisible ceiling. So it can't get through. It'll still be able to affect this, but it won't be able to go through past it because the selenite is like that layer of protection. Another thing you can also use if you don't have this much selenite is you can simply put a piece of shungite, which this is just shungite pyramid. You can simply just put it over the top as long as it's on the board like that. And shungite, what it does, it pretty much is like the bottom feeder stone of the crystals. that feeds on negativity and it transmutes it. So anything negative that tries to come out of the board is going to get sucked into that and transmuted into something that's more beneficial. And if you happen to have a piece such as like this Selenite tower, again, right on the top. And you can even also use other stones in conjunction with Selenite. In this case, this one's going to be black obsidian. And again, just like the same thing with the Selenite, completely have the whole entire board covered in it. Selenite is that, again, that high vibrational stone that is anti-BS, keeps things pure, and doesn't allow negativity to come anywhere near it, be able to do anything. And the other stone that I'm going to be talking about next, so you can also put on there, because I'm also going to be talking about stones that you can actually hold while you're using the pinnacle, where you're just using one hand. And it's best if you do use one hand because you have another hand focusing and holding onto the stones, taking that energy in, and then you have the other hand actually allowing it to move and use the indicator. And of course, if you don't have any obsidian, shungite, or any other stone like selenite, again, whenever you don't have a certain stone, you can always use clear quartz as the substitute in the stand-in for any stone. Does not matter. Just make sure, especially in this kind of a working and doing this kind of work, make sure you do inform it what you want it to do. That's a black tourmaline, but still, surround it in there so anything negative that comes through is going to get pulled right into each of them. But with the clear quartz, such as this one, make sure you tell the stone what you want it to do. Because with clear quartz, it can literally do anything. You just got to tell it what to do. And it'll always say, yeah, I'll do that. Sure. It doesn't know how to say no. So it'll say, yes, I'll do that. So make sure you tell it what to do. So, like for example, if I only had clear quartz and I'm going to surround the board with it, well, of course, I'm going to just tell the clear quartz to pretty much be all about protecting. And if anything that is potentially a threat comes through the board and tries to cause harm to me, just simply repel it. And then again, just surround the whole board with it. And another stone that you can actually put on top of the board like that is actually a lot more potent than selenite. Really more potent. Like, sippy sip. Another one is Apophyllite. This thing, yeah, this is like when it comes to like the four levels of cleanse, cleanliness, protection, and purification. This is stronger than selenite. And even as I'm holding on to this, my third eye, the top of my head, it's making loud like ringing noises. Yeah, this little thing literally, it does what it's supposed to do. And again, just like before, you can just put it right on the board. And then you can even also put it down on the goodbye right there if you have other stones and such. Other stone alternatives that you can consider about using, you can use sodalite. Sodalite is a communication stone and is also being able to interact with things with the more intuitive side and actually enhance communication between you and whomever you're communicating with. Lapis lazuli, similar to sodalite, but lapis is a little bit more of a protective and um how do I say this? Essentially, think of lapis lazuli as like a queen that's like, if you're gonna speak to me, you're gonna speak to me like I'm a queen. So zip it until you actually know that. It's kind of a bit of a more feisty, protecting communication stone, the best put it. Of course, amethyst as another viable choice. Blue sapphire. Blue sapphire is the stone of Saturn, and we all know how Saturn's like. I don't want your BS. Nope. You're gonna speak nice here. Nope. Hands off. Yeah. It's also really good for maintaining focus and not letting something distract you and get you off kilter. Black tourmaline is essentially the standard, well-known protector of the tourmalines, and is also able to move obstacles and any kinds of potential harm out of the way and get you through. A real good one is hematite. Even though this is a heart-shaped one, does not matter. This thing weighs a lot. Hematite literally is essentially, best put it, like if Saturn is spiking you back down to Earth. Get back! Like literally. Like if you're becoming a volleyball and he's spiking you back down to Earth because this thing is heavy. It keeps you grounded and it deflects negative influences away from you. And it's also a really good stone for doing vampiric work too, just for giggles. I think up in the last one is Snowflake Obsidian. Snowflake Obsidian is essentially the mixture of, like, say, clear quartz and obsidian. It gives that ability to be more connected to the spiritual side, but at the same time, it's still protective because of the obsidian part in it. I already spoken about selenite. Let's see. And of course, regular clear quartz, just for if you need to have it, just mimic any kind of stone that you need, or if you don't have, and if you want to actually be implementing it. So I'm going to take a moment and answer any questions if there's anything at all. So 5 minute open question moment. So any questions so far, just have at it and ask away. And then I'll be speaking again in like a few seconds or a few minutes. Anything, and try, if you're able to, try and keep it above the board, but if you have any other question, it's fine. I'll have it be open for like 5 minutes for a few questions, if there's any. And if you're going to be doing this kind of work too, it is best suggested, most likely to do it on days that are such as Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. Those are the most suggested days. But like I said, you can use the board anytime, any day, any time of the day, raining, snowing, 120 degrees outside. Probably not going to really be able to use the board in a tornado or a hurricane, but if you want to think it's a good idea to, use the board during a cyclone, have at it. Don't know why you would do that, but it is what it is. Hmm, Since okay, let me see what I'm just waiting for this thing to pop up on the computer. You can use sigils you make yourself. You can use those too. You can even also use the runes that are used in rune casting. You can use those, as well as your own witch's runes, which is where you make your own rune system and you give each rune its meaning. That's another way you can also make a board out of. Heck, I've actually seen people actually make a spirit board on a napkin and a pen, and what they use to actually uh, use as like the indicator. I mean, they just simply just poke the hole through a leaf and then they just used it like that. I mean, it's pretty much just working on hand with what you got. Literally a piece of notebook paper, a pen, and a leaf that has a hole in the center. That's how simple it can. That's how simplistic it can be sometimes. But again, this is actually one of the divination ways that I would suggest you have outside things assisting you. Made a spirit board, but what did it Well, usually the number one thing that makes these things actually really do what they are supposed to is if you're actually really giving it the chance and the ability to even do it in the first place. Because through perspective and how you're approaching it and how you're going about it, kind of is like the hidden on switch, if that makes sense. Because if you're going to be using the board and thinking of it like, oh, this is not going to do anything, nothing's going to work, this is not going to work, nothing's going to happen. But if you actually take the time, like here, I'll even set it up like if I was actually going to do it. So, and of course, preferably too, if you're going to be using any kind of incense or any kind of scent in the room, preferably you would want to use something either like frankincense or I call it Frankie. Um, you could also use, I would say, black spruce as well as blue lotus. Blue lotus would be a really good one, but I know that a lot of people do not have access to blue lotus. But if you have the chance to, definitely blue lotus. Another one that you can use is as well. Hmm. You could also use clary sage. Cypress would be good. Would be a good one. So would be patchouli, sandalwood, cedarwood. Yep, plants. Yeah, Saturnian plants. Yeah, and also moon-related plants. So like poppy seed, jasmine. Again, well, blue lotus is another moon plant. Same with um, trying to think of off the top of my head. Not well, not really coconut, but uh, you could maybe also possibly ivy as another one. That one's connected to the underworld, but anyway. So if I was actually going to be using the board as it is like right now, like if I was going to go hands on, full on, ready to go, make sure that everything to me looks like it has to be able to be convincing to me that okay, this looks like I can work with it. But if it's not exactly how I feel comfortable with, if you're not comfortable with how it's presented or how you've set it up, that's fine. Do what you have to do to make yourself feel like, okay, I think I'm ready for this. Take as much time as you need because believe me, if you're going to be trying to interact with something on the other side, it can take its nice sweet time. It can wait. It can hold its pigeons. Because again, and I'll keep saying this until, I turn blue in the face. You come first. Everything else doesn't matter. If you're not good, nothing matters. So, let's see. I'm trying to think of any other like physical things you can also put onto this. Incense wise, again, sandalwood, cedarwood, frankincense, jasmine, cypress. You could use dragon's blood. Yeah, that's another one. As well as Hmm. Copal, lavender. Preferably, my best choice would say would be lavender, clary sage, and frankincense or cedarwood or sandalwood. Primarily ones that are high vibrational and protective, and also still allowing the supportive entities to come through. Nothing BS related to come through. And if you have connection with any kind of astral beings, such as divine or spirits that you're familiar with, most definitely call out to them and ask them to be with you during this whole time. And it really doesn't matter if anybody else that's with you believes in it or not. Again, you first, nothing else matters. So in this case, for an example, I would most likely, of course, have Hell, Nyx, ask Lilith if she wants to. And yes, Jennifer, Violet's a good one. Even though Violet's more, I would say, it's more of a seductive, lulling kind of a scent. But if it works for you, I would say, yep, that one does have potential to work as well. Same with Musk. Okay. So, and yes, I'll do demonstrate them now. Again, so first and foremost, the intention. What on earth am I going to be using this spirit board for besides the obvious? Well, it kind of looks like you're going to use it to communicate with something. Okay, well, at least we know at least one thing that I'm going to use the board for. But specifically whom, why, and what is it that's trying to be gained from it? Like, say, for an example, say if I wanted to, yep, yep, you can. You can use black salt, regular sea salt, regular table salt, as long as it's around the board, or you can take the black salt or salt and put it like on the board, like surrounding it, or even put it in the corners. Yep, yes, it is. Because selenite, and the way that I have it laid out, and also this is an apophyllite in the top middle of it. The selenite is acting like a layer, like an invisible glass ceiling. So if anything tries to come through, it's going to do this. Like this is the board, the physical board right here, and this is whatever's trying to get through and try and get a hold. It's just gonna keep hitting its head. It can't get through. It'll be able to move this, but it can't come through and get a hold of me because this is the ceiling, glass ceiling, and you can try all this all at once. It's just gonna keep hitting its head, and it's not gonna go anywhere. And if you don't have selenite or if you don't have any clear quartz and telling them to actually do that, you can also, even though this one's not as, yep, you can. You can use metals too, but just make sure you know the properties of each metal before you use it. For an example, potentially copper will conduct more energy and also silver too, but I would be very careful about like titanium. That one might be potentially risky, but nonetheless. So say for an example, I wanted to communicate with, let's see, hmm, I will attempt to reach out to, let's see here, an ancestor of mine. And may I help? Okay. And what I'm doing is I'm actually having the intention being repeated in my head. And when you have the intention set in your mind, you then would say it out loud. I wish to communicate with whomever it is. In this case, is a certain ancestor of mine. So then you simply just put it right in the center, and then you just allow the piece to go on its own. But when you're using the board, you can also hold amethyst. That would probably be my best suggestion. Clear quartz. In this case, I'm going to have amethyst, blue sapphire, and lapis. And now I'm going to put my hand right on the indicator and just allow the energy just to take your finger and then move it around. And then just take a few deep breaths and just let it flow. And when you ask your question, speak it aloud. Is there a presence here alongside me that I'm not aware of, that I do not know? And when it goes, you just let it flow. It just moved on to no. What does the first letter of your name start with? It moved over to the letter R. Hmm. Were you a doctor when you were alive? If you were a human, did you work as a doctor? Moved right on to no. Did you work in the health field? If you were a human, it just moved on to yes. Were you once human? It moved over to yes. What year did you pass in? Moved on to two, zero, two, one. Did you feel you lived life to the fullest? Moved it to yes. I'm taking a pause because, yeah, this is kind of a little bit, to best put it, it's a little bit emotion driven. Like it's getting me a little emotional. That makes sense. So, how how long did you have to be in the situation that caused your death? How long? Say how many hours? Moved over to 6. And ignore the stuff in the background. I can't even think about it. Did you have any children? If so, how many? Moved over to yes. Then to 2. Is this the ancestor that I was intending to speak with before I started? Moved over to yes. And my finger is turning a little bit dark because that's how much I'm trying to keep my finger still and just allowing it to flow. Oh, are you in a place where you are no longer in any kind of pain, suffering, and actually in a place where you already knew you were going to be in? Moved over to yes. Were you there when it was my birthday? Went over to yes again. What you left behind, do you trust those who it's being handled to, or who it's being handed over to? What you invested in and what was left behind? Do you trust those who is going to be taking them over? Yeah, that went over to yes pretty fast. What was one of your favorite phrases that you used to say all the time? Y O U. Usually, when you see the pinnacle do that, like if it goes into like this blank space, that's a space, by the way. A R E E F. I already know what it is. IRED. You're fired. God for. Yep, that's who I intended to interact with. Oh man, so funny. What was another phrase you used to say all the time? O H. There's the space again. Random center. J E E Z. Oh geez. Well, Jennifer, depending on, like, for example, if you're interacting with a certain entity that works better in, like, is known to be more of a daytime entity or a nighttime entity, If you correspond with that, like for an example, like say you're going to interact with Lucifer, he's more of a daytime entity. So working with him in the night in the times when the sun's up will be more potentially easier to connect with. And say if you're interacting with someone like Satanus, which is more of like when the sun is down and it's dark outside, that's when you'd be more connected to more of the darker, if that makes sense. What was one thing you really knew about me? Like, what was one thing that immediately, whenever you heard about it, you already knew? Oh, yeah, that's him. A S T R O L O G Y. Astrology. Very funny. Very funny, you. What was another one? W W I T C. I already know what she's gonna say. C H C R A F T. Witchcraft. Funny. Very funny. Ah. What is one piece of advice that you can give everybody who's watching this or watching the replay? S T O P. Stop. D E Y N. My bad. Y I N G. Stop denying. Y O U R. Stop denying your H A. Let me get my fingers back on it. Don't. Just trying to move it and I don't even have my finger on it yet. Calm down. He, he, even though that's not how you spell happiness. And E S S. That's not really how you spell happiness, I think, but I could be wrong. But what do I know? So essentially, stop denying your happiness is what was said. Oh, my finger. And usually, if your finger kind of hurts, that's how you know, yeah, you gotta go. Any other messages you want to say, or you can think of? I space A M S T I L L space H E R E. I am still here. Well, yeah. Anything else? Moved over to no. Should we let you take your leave then? Yes. So then from there, you then move the indicator right to goodbye. And then that closes it. So then once it's closed, you then take the finical piece, the indicator, off first. And then this, you pretty much, you cleanse the living heck out of it. You can put a piece of Shungite on top of it. You can even also take something such as Selenite as such and completely just hold it like that and just completely sandwich it to the Selenite, completely purifying and making it cleansed. Because this thing, if you don't do that, the residue of the previous interaction is going to be stuck to it, and that's going to have potential to become a hot mess. So this thing, make sure you cleanse it. But if it came with the board, yep, again, cleanse it too. And specifically, if there's anything on the board, you take the stuff on the board off first, and then you take the layer or the selenite or stones surrounding it off last. Apophyllite is already a pure, potent stone anyway, so this does not need to be cleansed. Because if anything malefic or negative tries to get on it, it's just gonna. So then you just simply take everything off, going preferably in a counterclockwise fashion, ending it as such. So then, of course, you would cleanse the board. You can simply dispel frankincense, sandalwood, myrrh, anything anything cleansing, purifying on the top of it. The black salt, or if you use any salt, try your best to sweep it all up. You go outside somewhere far away from your property and or put in some kind of containment system, or even out to like a different trash area, and then just throw it over your shoulder. Make sure it lands into the trash behind you, preferably away from your house, and then walk away from it and do not turn back. And that's really how to use a spirit board or a Ouija board, and in the way that the best way that I can suggest on how to use it, and also a really nice, someone needed demonstration on how it looks like and how it would play out. So now I'll leave it open to having it be open floor for any questions of any kind for about another short bit. And then after that, I believe we are a-okay and finished. And another board of advice too. Do not burn the board, especially when something baneful has interacted with it. You have to cleanse that thing first. Don't burn it, because if you have if an unnerving situation happen, if it happens, then and if you burn it, you're releasing that entity out of the board because fire pretty much transforms it into and it starts going into the air, and that's something we don't want. We don't want it. We don't want that entity being able to move through the air freely. The reason why for holding the stones, in the case I was holding blue sapphire, amethyst, and lapis lazuli, the qualities of those stones, for example, amethyst is a spiritual protector and is also an intuitive enhancing stone. Blue sapphire helps to maintain the focus, and lapis lazuli ensures communication between me and whomever is coming through the board. It's actually in a state that's respectful and higher form of communication, and no negative or toxic interactions come through the board. You could use regular clear quartz if you want to, but If you're somebody who's extremely sensitive, then I would suggest throwing like a piece of hematite, black tourmaline, or something that's really grounding, so that way something won't come through and easily take over you. But again, this way that I set it up and showed is at least my best suggestion way of going about it. And all the tips were just my suggestions. And I've actually used the Spirit board or the Ouija board many times. And I've only had one incident where something decided to be like, oh, I'm going to mess with them. Yeah. And, well, I mean, nothing bad happened to me, but the other thing, well, nah. I learned not to do that again. Because I got a piece of selenite, which I have right here. I got this pretty much stabbed through its hand when trying to hold my hand without my consent, but still. Yeah, this lovely thing. Yeah, this used to be one selenite in one piece, but because I stabbed it through the ground so hard, snapped. And this part, the point part, was just sticking out of the carpet just like that. And I just kept using the board like nothing even happened. And in the mind's eye, I just kept hearing this painful shriek, like something was in pain, whimpering. Like, oh, nope, told you, don't hold my hand. Just didn't listen the first 3 times. Okay, well, gonna have to make you stop somehow. So, hope you like getting poked. And when it comes to these kind of practices, you have to understand that just because something is on a different plane of existence, and even though it doesn't have the same capability as you do for like pretty much being manifested as a physical entity messing with you, it really doesn't matter. If it's gonna act like a twat head to you, you can tell it, hey, if you keep acting like a twat head, you're gonna wish you didn't. So stop it. Use your head and be mindful, please. Won't listen? Okay. And even also, if you have a board and if you're able to this big, you can also put it, because all that's in here is selenite. You can also just put it. I would also even put the indicator in there too. Close it up, and then essentially all the selenite that's in there will just pretty much just completely overkill it with purification and making sure anything malefic or baneful or potentially harmful gets cleansed and purified away. So let's see how long I've been live for. Let's see. Yeah. Wonder, does this thing have? Oh, so let's see. Hmm. Let's see. Okay, let's see if I is that gonna post it? Of course not. Um, I guess I'm just gonna put this because I'm actually gonna put a poll in here real quick. Um, because I mean I'd like to keep things open-ended. I'll just do that. Okay, is that I hopefully this thing's gonna send. If it doesn't send, I'm just gonna be like, I quit. Come on. All right. Okay, why? Oh, it's right in front of my face. Like, how come this isn't working? Oh, that's why, because I didn't hit the ask button. Oy. Okay, let's try this again. I really hope this thing works, otherwise I'm just gonna throw my computer off a cliff. Did it work? The world may never know. Oh, it did, okay. Yep, we got one for spell work. And just for giggly gigglies too. Also, let me know what kind of spell work. So that way I'm not like, okay, spell work. I'll just pick a random one out of the hat. Okay, King Doodle. So we have, I don't care. No, not you guys. It's just something that's like, oh, well, you don't have this thing turned on. Stupid computer. Okay, I'm gonna get that out of my life. Looks like astrology is so far in first. 67. 3 votes. And astrology wise, I should have also put that in there. What parts of astrology too? Like a planetary, like a certain planet, what it represents, a planetary placement, what like what the signs are again, go through the signs again, what each house is, how to read it. So that way I'm not going to take a random thing in the dark, be like, okay, so about this planet being in this house throwing a hissy fit because it's in a sign where it gets unhappy. Yeah, get through it. I don't like shooting blindly. That sounded so bad. Oh, karmic charts. Oh, okay. The karmic charts. Those are you're going to be your other divisional charts. Okay, okay. That would be. Where is there? They are. Essentially, you would be looking at. Oh, not that one. Okay, for that one, you would be for looking at the karmic charts. That would be your D6, 8, 11, 30, 45, and 60. Just to double check. Can't get that out of my life. It would be 30 years later. Ugh. Yep, it would be. Yep, it would be D6, D8, D11, D30, D45, and D60. Yep, those would be the ones then. Alrighty. So karmic charts it will be for the next live, which I'll see when I'll be posting that up. But yeah, the karmic charts will be a little bit, to put it simply, the karmic charts, the D6, D8, 11, 30, 45, and 60. Those charts might be a little bit uncomfortable for some people to actually hear about, but it is what it is, and yeah, that's just how it is. So I guess next live we'll be going into them, and I'll just talk to y'all then. Oh Lord, did it work? Yay!